Hello, welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, on a beautiful afternoon, the last day of May. Did I just rhyme? I was moving transmissions around. I took the 475 case off the stand, put it in the washer. I haven't turned the washer on yet because it's loud. I try to run it when I'm not in the shop. Doesn't always work out that way. And I put this 1978 CG code transmission on the stand. 78 CG is a four-wheel drive with a 400 small block. And I can tell you with the length of the output shaft, it had the full-time four-wheel drive new process 203 transfer case. Yep, big, heavy, all-time, full-time four-wheel drive. So we used to install kits to take the differential out of the back of the transfer case and put hubs on the front, made by Doug Nash, and convert them to a part-time transfer case. For fuel mileage, don't you know? So I wasn't going to film a thing, but I said, you know what? I don't want to become that transmission stripping guy on YouTube, but hey, why not do another one? It's always interesting. You see this one has the 6 bolt holes tapped. It would have had the aluminum case, the support rods, the rod that ran back to the drop side of the transfer case, passenger side. It is still thin around the bell housing. The case is not marked HD, but they were headed that direction. And again, HD cases are just to support the transfer case. In this case, the new process 203 was the heaviest transfer case GM ever used in a pickup that I'm aware of. So let me move the camera back, give you a better angle. And I already got the pump bolts out, and that's when I decided I should turn on the camera. Okay, I'm ready if you are. Make sure the camera's going. It is. I have to resort to using my auxiliary parts bucket because the 475 parts are still all over the bench. So as mentioned, I already broke the pump bolts loose. First thing I notice is this area is painted gray. So probably at some point it had a rebuild. At least once. At least. Same deal, the guy, a buddy of mine, pressure washed this case as well. There's 2 more in the back room. There's another 4-wheel drive that I also need to strip for parts. And there's a switch pitch, probably a Cadillac bell housing. I haven't looked. I forget what bell housing is. I'm pretty sure it's early Cadillac. It's got the switch pitch, converter, and pump. Not much to see here. At the end, some black stuff still draining out, even though he probably cleaned this. Time will tell what we find inside. Don't mind me just doing a little housekeeping. I like to wipe out the pan. When I put more parts in there, they don't just get dirtier. Again, first indication, 1 seal. Again, not conclusive, but a lot of times when they're painted in the bell housing, it might have just come in what we used to call a seal job, where the bushing or the converter seal was bad and just the front pump was leaking and everything else was fine. So we just pull them out, reseal the front pump, and put it back in. This one has the spacer for the filter this time. The other one was missing. I guess in this position, let's go ahead. I'm going to block you again briefly. The governor clamp is on backwards. So excuse me, the modulator clamp is on backwards. Don't know what's going on there. Again, sorry about blocking you. Got limited space. This is going to require a little bit of massaging. See if I can break it loose for you. Not my favorite hammer. But I guess I'll use it anyway. That's what I have. That one's going to require a smaller hammer. Let's see what we got. 1, 2, 3. We got them. Once I got the 3 broke loose, the 4th one came. This one does have a governor. Always make sure the weights drop. It does. That's an actual full functioning governor. Modulator has been replaced at some point. O-ring's hot as a rock. We got her out though. Alrighty then, tilt the back a little bit. What oil I can see is nice and clean. Same deal, I'm gonna do the small ones first. Almost broke myself there. Small valve body bolts, 1/4 inch, 3 of them. And now back to the 1/2 inch. You just start with the spring for the rooster, the detent spring, and then we can go any pattern. I'm going to end up over here, so just go across the top. That bolt's different. That one's different. These 3 have a different head. Not unusual, but might be an indication it's been apart before. Ain't nothing popped up yet. Either it's stuck really well or the spring is broken. She was just stuck. Hopefully my bucket alignment is sufficient. Not quite get the governor tubes out. I like to be gentle with them, so I can reuse them. There we go. Does have the aluminum piston in the valve body, but the spring is definitely broken. That should be sticking up, or it's been removed. The hole is still open, so it still has the 1-2 override, 1-2 shift override. So I'm going to guess the spring's just broken. But hard telling, that does not seem to be there. Interesting. Very interesting. They always are. The oil is pretty decent. Nice and red. Always a good sign. I feel like we should be talking about something instead of just slinging out bolts. Kick down solenoid. And continue with the 1/2 inch. I guess I have to take that off. I just took that out of there. See if it's stuck at all. I like to give it a shot. Ooh, see? This one's gonna like to look a decal. If you fold it right over, sometimes it comes off better. Boom, one piece. find my magnet. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You don't need all 6. You can omit one according to the instructions and life experience. But you know what happens if you leave it in there? Nothing, not a thing. So let's bust the rear servo loose. I went too far, but it's okay. I like to break them loose, but I got carried away. That did plenty of spring on it, didn't it? And here comes the oil. It's a never-ending ATF waterfall. This is going to be full of debris. Yep, every time. Oh, I missed. I just throw this stuff. Again, that likes to accumulate debris as well. We got a lot of dark black material, probably clutch material. We're going to find out soon enough. And while we're right here, like I said, because we're going to replace the linkage seal, which I now see the nail is bent, so somebody's been in here. Never fails. Pocket pawl guide, pocket pawl spring, like I say, it is in the correct position where it goes this way and it goes under the pawl. So you actually got to kind of tweak it out of there. And I mentioned in the last video, so I'll actually do it this time. To get the electrical pass-through out, I like to just go ahead and tap on it, get it moving. Get it moved a little bit. Then if we take a 3/4 wrench, squish it in, then I go right back in the middle of it. Only need about half a octopus's arm. And she came out. Well, she's passing through the hole anyway. It's always good to fire over the floor and have it go under the bench. Because there's some kind of phenomenon when I drop anything on the floor, it bounces and goes under the bench. But we got it out, did not break the tabs. It will live to see more duty. All right, you can see, I hope you can see the little short output shaft, 203. In 1978 was one of the years. They started using them in 1973, I believe. They're probably all done by 79, maybe 80. So oil does look pretty nice. Not seeing a lot of water in this one like the other one. That 475 had more water infusion. And once again, when I used this last time, I didn't put it back. This thing's getting pretty well bent. I'll have to hammer it back straight again, but it still works. At this point in time anyway, it's a good indication of how stuck things are. Sometimes they come right out. This one came right out. I'm bending it though. Just give her a little pop. I go right under the pressure regulator. Between that and the case, don't hurt anything. Out she comes. I noticed in the last video when I'm lifting things, I can hear myself grunting. I'll try to avoid that, though I just did it. So I'll show you again before we say goodbye, but we have metal sealing rings, nothing special. The pump gasket just came off in one piece. That's fantastic. The another 8-bolt case. Wow. Sometimes I'm looking for 6-bolt cases because, you know, in my mind they're not as valuable. So depending on what I'm doing with the case, if I was looking for an 8-bolt case, it'd all be 6s or 7s. When you're not looking, they're all 8s. Pop out the forward. Drum. Find my hook. Somebody asked what brand it was. It is Mac Tools, I believe. No, it's not. It might just be generic. Could be Harbor Freight. I don't know. I thought it was Mac Tools, but it's not marked on it. Stuck with the sun shaft a little bit. Squeaky. You can just barely hear it. So that'll be a roller tight clutch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clutches. Does not appear to be burnt up too bad. I say I have suspicions this has been rebuilt at some point in his life. Not yesterday, but someday. The band looks fantastic. It's a Raybestos, so somebody put some good quality parts in here, still marked Raybestos even. If you can see the red right there. Like they just put it in yesterday. Now again with the hook and my old Craftsman screwdriver. I wish I could still go out to Sears at the main mall and have that warranted. Okay, somebody put the opening of the intermediate clutch snap ring over here, which is fine, but if I was putting a case saver in, I would do the same. But in this case, when they use a stock snap ring, say that 10 times, it really doesn't make a difference. I prefer to put it about 9 o'clock where the book tells you. But stock, thin, weak snap ring. Sometimes you find the fretting ring here, or the wrong snap ring, or the beveled ring here. Obviously that is incorrect. Intermediate clutches coming out. They are Borg Warner. Still read the part number. Has the wave plate. So 2 thick steels and a wave plate. Pretty standard issue stuff. Now the bevel snap ring, it sometimes gives a little more resistance. It's migrated down to about 8 o'clock, maybe 7 o'clock. But same deal, I pull on it. Keep hooking my little hook into it. Keep moving my pick around to get a little more stress on it. Eventually she comes out. It was in the correct way. Nothing wrong there. Now being a 4-wheel drive, we don't have a speedo gear. You watch me take the governor out. It has the cut plug in the case where the speedo drive used to be, or never was. In this case, seems how the code, the 78CG, matches up to what we're looking at. It is, in my opinion, in its original configuration, although it has been rebuilt. Coming out. No, we're not. Dummy. You got to take the center support bolt out, see? If you weren't here watching, I would still make the same mistake every now and then. Man, that's tight. That's okay. Before I forget, before you even pull it out of there, I like to look at the area where the center support bolt would seal to the case. If it's messed up there, it will leak fluid and second gear will be a problem. While I'm right down here squatted down, this transmission has a governor screen. You don't often find rebuilds that put them back in other than mine. If I'm building an automatic shifting transmission, I put the governor screen back in the governor hole in the case that's closest to the output shaft. That would be on its way, oil on its way to the governor. Now, dummy, let's do it again. The stock crush washer and selective washer. When I say selective, that means they come in different sizes. So you can shim the end play, changing this 3-tanged washer if you had a selection of them. When you measure stock ones, they didn't seem to vary too far off the reservation. While the book lists that they had them, you didn't always see them out in the wild. So I should measure all the ones I have. I have a collection of them because I put the thrust washer in the bottom of the case, excuse me, the thrust bearing. The TH400 pump washer goes in the bottom of the case. When you're building a, stouter transmission than a stock rebuild, so you don't put the 3-tang washer back in. This does have the fretting ring, 1978. That makes perfect sense. The band, let's see what they did here. Nope, it's got a part number, but if it was Ray Vestas like the front one, it would probably say so. But either way, it's in fine shape. It appears to be an OEM type anyway. And certainly usable. So, well, you're right here. You come this far, let's finish our job here. This way, when we go to turn around, you've seen everything. So, you don't need the nail anymore, and somebody went and bent it, so now we got to bend it back. Kind of like that. So you can get her out of the case. Just like that. And with a 9/16. Take the nut, take it loose, as they say down in the south. I like to use my snap-on wrench by whacking on it like it's a hammer. And if you're careful, you won't drop anything. A lot of times there's wear right here on the rooster from years of vibrating around. This one's in good shape. Same with the rod. The rod's got some wetness marks, but she's okay. And now, every time I give it a try, but very seldom will it come out without hurting the case, so I just take a flat file and I rotate this. I just keep moving the file back and forth. You can go either direction, doesn't matter. Take the burr off, and out she comes. Now I'll spin you around and we'll take the innards apart, as they say. And we're back. Let's take it in the order they came out. Starting with the pump, this particular sealing ring unhooked itself, but even when it's hooked, like I mentioned in the other video, if you have Teflon seals, the selective front washer for setting front end play is captive. With the Teflon it'll fall off. With the steel rings it won't come off without removing the rings. So, let's pop the old pump apart. I actually like to take the O-ring off while it's sitting right here. See how hard that is? Not bad. It's actually got a white stripe, so like most of the aftermarket ones are. And same deal, 5 unique bolts. Well, 1 long, 2 medium, 2 shorts. Crisscross. Just because. And I'm holding the pump halves. This video is going to be very similar to the other one. That's why I stopped to highlight things I might have missed on the other one. I do take the pump bolts and just set them off to the side for now. Always look for wear here. We got a little I bet Scotch-Brite would even clean it up. So, again, I was chastised for not measuring all this stuff, but we've covered it in other videos. These are typically 0.727 wide unless this area has been machined. I made a mistake in the other stripping video, which again, every video comes with at least one mistake and an old sock somewhere in the background. But I said this pocket was for collecting water. Well, in that other transmission, that may be true, but this little pocket right here is just pool some oil for lubrication for the big gear. That's all it does. A little bit of reserve because it likes to thrust that direction apparently. So those gears appear fine. Again, we clean everything and inspect everything. As we're stripping, we're looking for big obvious flaws, and then you have to kind of break it down from there. This case, the front bushing actually looks pretty decent. This pump did not get water in it like the other one did. So a little bit, a very little bit of water, but not much. So we'll push that out of the way. Take one of my many rags, just trying to keep up on the pool. Otherwise, if I don't notice, it's running onto my boots and my pants. So next in line would have been the forward drum. That's the one with the input shaft. So let's just pop out the old snap ring. Everything looks super clean already, which, being the guy that has to wash all this stuff, that always makes me happy. Right off the bat, we got boy warners with the part number. I don't know why I waste my time even doing that, but I do. See, there was a question the other day that somebody had. What did I do with it? Right here. And if I'm building a performance transmission, I put a brass type thrust washer on both sides of the hub, the forward hub. But these, you could put this big one on the back, but it would be wrong. You can't put the rear one on the front because it won't fit over, see? But you could mistakenly put this here and it'd be too big. So they are different. And when they're plastic and brass, it's easy to see that. But when you're putting all brass ones in, you got to know there's a front and a back. And once again, if it rang like a bell, like a 480E does, it's made of much better metal. That one there is just a standard duty. But much like the other dozens I have sitting on the shelf, because they get replaced in a performance transmission. We have metal pistons. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is interesting. We have 5 clutches, 5 steels, and a wave plate. That must be how the stack up worked. Let's actually see what it looks like. Because I know what, even that wave plate's an Alto. Alto writes their name on the very tang right there. But bear with us while we stack this back up, because I did not eyeball it at first. But I've mentioned in the past, I like my stack. The forward's not as critical for clearance. I mean, you could always squish the thing together, it'd probably work because it doesn't come off and on. But when I stack it, if you can see it, I want my stack to come right up. My clearance is the distance between the top clutch and the shelf where the pressure plate's going to sit. So I don't use feeler gauges or anything else. I just eyeball that area right there. I don't know if I'm giving you a good shot, but right here, all the way around, you get lots of chances to look at it. But when I stack it up, this one's got, yeah, if I was to measure it, probably 50 thousandths, 60 thousandths. So again, in a forward, you could run less, but this is pretty much acceptable. So that's the way the stack up worked. And they wanted to take up the space that was here It's not uncommon. There's nothing wrong with having two steels together. In this case, the steel and the beveled, excuse me, and the wave plate. The wave plate is for cushion when you put it in gear. If you don't have a loose torque converter, if you have a tight torque converter, you pop it in gear without the wave plate. And if you leave the center seal out of the forward drum, it may go in kind of firm. So if you're okay with that, that's fine. So what numbered spacer do we have here? A 0. Interesting. Remember, a 0 is what we had in the factory 6 clutch direct drum that was in the TH475 in the last video. So I'm not going to pop this apart. I assume it has all 3 seals just by its application. So we'll leave that a mystery, or will we? I don't know. We may get back to it. So now, already stated this squeaks, so I know it's going to be a roller style. Technically not a sprag, but a roller clutch. If you want, somebody will correct me if I say one or the other, and that's okay. Again, when you just run it on, you make mistakes. I rotate it in its normal direction. You can see it's a roller. And just for now, see if we can get it back together just as easy. Yep. We'll even pop the snap ring back on it. Which is silly because I'm going to take it back apart to clean it. But it's a good demonstration of what happens to my gloves. I always get them caught underneath. So I try to get my glove out of position and get it back in. Pop the direct clutches out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, 5. We got 4 thick steels and 1. In this case, the wave plate is right against the clutch, which is the most common way you find them. You would think it would be hard on that lower clutch, but they seem to take it okay. Once again, these are Borg Warner showing the part number. 100% reusable. Somebody asked me if I would reuse them. And the answer is yes, depending on the expectations of one. If it's for me, of course I would. If it's for someone else, it depends what they're looking for in a transmission. If I'm building them a brand new transmission, well, I'm not going to put used parts in it. But if they want me to, do a quickie on it or something, well, we'll see. Now this spacer is it's a no-name. It has a line that looks like a 1, but which would make sense. So let's call it a 1. It was in the correct direction. I put these little openings down, and I still need to pull that out as well, but on the center support, having all 4 rings, there'd be no reason to leave the center seals out. So I don't expect to find anything special inside either drum, just standard 3 seals apiece. All right, put that in there. I'm out of space, but I always like to make sure this works. So it's your freewheel left, lock to the right. You can hear it squeaking, as roller clutches do. Just lift that straight out. Has a plastic thrust washer in here. Always grabs that upper bearing race. Always check the race. Just make sure there's nothing grossly obvious that something is wrong. This stuff comes out, and depending on how much it grabs each other, the upper bearing. These often get reused. This is the one with the multi-rollers in it. Those last a long time. Again, totally up to you whether you replace them or not. More often it's not. It has a silencer band. Again, you can leave this out. It does nothing but help to quiet the gear train. Check the planets. Nice and tight. This has the spiraling like we talked about before. This is a perfect example of what a reaction carrier should look like. The rollers aren't falling out of the low roller. Probably perfectly healthy. Nothing out of the ordinary with the sun tube. Sun gear was in the right direction. The cone, or the tapered side down, the beveled side if you will. This has, surprisingly, a metal thrust washer. This is typically the one I take out of the bottom of the case and move it up here between the carriers. But in this case, somebody already put a metal one in, or the factory may have. Now, obviously, we will not be using, well, you don't know that, but this is going to be a two-wheel drive slip yoke application, so we do not need the four-wheel drive output shaft, but a friend of mine is willing to do some trading, so if I give him some four-wheel drive output shafts, he'll give me some two-wheel drive ones. Now this output shaft snap ring, my screwdriver is just about done here, but is a mean one to get started. Sometimes it just came right out. So this transmission is nice and clean, which makes me happy because again, I'm the guy washing all the parts. That is near perfect example of the shortest output shaft they used. Two bearing sets here in their correct direction. All three bearing sets in the lower unit are different. And when in doubt, just consult the book. They have excellent pitches telling you which direction these shields need to face. They all have little shields on them. So did I check? The planets right here. Tight, 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 tight. So perfect example of a very nice TH400 that we're going to cannibalize and use for parts. I guess we're still rolling. Let me check. If so, I'll close right out. Yes, once again, I've talked too much. So, if you see me in real life, I typically am wearing my glasses. These are Z87 OSHA approved safety glasses left over from when I had a real job, but in cases where I'm working on things that wouldn't mind taking my eye out, it's not a beauty contest, especially if you only have one eye. Although the pirate look is pretty hot. So my bench is now completely devastated. I'm alternating today between, again, stripping this transmission. I've been working outside on my small boat, servicing that. I started doing videos on working on the small boat, and all three people that watch it, I thank you. Well, maybe more than that, but not exactly what people come to my channel apparently to want to see. But hey, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to give it one more, highlighting the rest of the repair. I have successfully bled out the steering and been working on just doing service work. So that's it today. These gloves, I wash them and reuse them. I get as many uses out of them as possible. I carefully take them off every time. It's not easy when the phone's ringing or there's other reasons where you need to hurry. That's where most of my glove consumption goes. And I look at my hands. My hands are still dry, so they don't have a pinhole in them. I didn't catch them too hard in the snap ring. So thanks for watching. I don't think this is going to work. Let's try it, but have a nice day, and catch you next time.